Good day everyone, and welcome yet again to another episode of Dinner Guide. My name is Chef Andy, and today we are going to be taking you through a very beautiful and simple dish. I'm going to be showing you how to make a very simple Chinese egg cake. And before I begin, I will start by introducing some of the ingredients we're going to be working with today. So from the very front, I've got about 3/4 cups of sugar. I've also got about a cup of all-purpose flour. We've also got a teaspoon of vanilla, about half a teaspoon of baking powder, just a little bit of powdered sugar just to finish off the dish, 2 whole eggs, and a bit of salt. You will also require a very beautiful and simple dish that you can actually steam with in the oven or over the top stove top. So anything particularly aluminium you might want to avoid. We will actually recommend that you use anything that is glassware or stainless steel. I'm also going to be using a food mold for that, which is actually going to suspend this very simple container over the water where we are going to be steaming the cake. And of course, last but not least, you will need a very big bowl for it to actually aid you in whipping your egg whites. So without further ado, we will go into a short break now and allow you to just refresh and get ready for the show. I will also recommend for those of you that are taking notes for this particular recipe, this is your chance to do so. So please do that, and we will see you in a short while. Please don't touch that down. Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back. For those of you who are just catching up, we were just introducing the dish of the day, which is a Chinese egg cake, and we're just about to start the very simple technique of making it. But very simply, as I mentioned, we are going to be working with a very few amount of ingredients. So I will also mention for this particular recipe, it is more importantly important to know the technique other than the recipe, because as I mentioned, it is going to be a steamed cake, and we'll be doing that on the stove top and not in the oven. So a lot of you might actually be able to learn something new, and I will actually urge that you do give us a bit of time and bear with us while we whip some of the ingredients. They might actually take a little longer, but I will insist, if you do have an electric beater or an electric whisk at home, it will save you the effort. But if you don't have one, you may actually be forced to do it the same way we are going to do it on the show today. So without further ado, we're going to go into the first process, and that is going to be separating our eggs. So very simply, just using the back or the side of a spoon, proceed to break the shell on your egg. And very simply, just break part of that shell off, allowing for your egg white to just pour out onto your bowl. And all you need to do now is, using your fingers, just press them right over the bowl and just pour your egg onto your fingertips, allowing your egg white to roll all through, and of course leaving you with only your egg yolk. And you can proceed to put that in a separate bowl and continue to do the same for the second piece. So very gently, just open that egg up. Always allow the egg white to just pour out in its excess. And then finally, just open your egg like that. Begin to pour the rest of your mixture into the other piece of shell, of course making sure to not break your yolk, and only allow for the egg white to pour right through. And once that's done, pour that into the other bowl and just proceed. So we are going to be whipping the two different sets of eggs in a very different way. So we are going to first of all start by whipping our egg whites, because they are going to actually have to be a little stiffer before we mix everything in together. So I will actually start by grabbing a bigger bowl on the side here, and to that all you will do is grab your salt and just pour just a little pinch into your big bowl, and proceed to add your egg whites in there as well. And now, using a metallic or a plastic whisk, you're just going to start by whipping your eggs. So as I mentioned, it will take quite a bit of time, so do bear with us through the process. Once it's nice and foamy, proceed to add just a small pinch of salt, and this will actually help you stabilize your egg whites. Once it's now achieved its nice soft peak, proceed to add about another small 2 pinches of salt, and remember to also add very little as you proceed towards the very end, because this will actually help you to just stabilize the egg and avoid it from collapsing. But very importantly, be very careful when adding your egg white, your salt to your egg white, because it could actually overpower the flavor. So be very careful while you do so. Now we're just going to continue to whip that to the very end. So you should actually start to notice that your mixture should actually be a little thicker now, and it should actually be able to hold on to the bowl once stippled over. So you're probably going to go into your first stage of confirming. So always just grab your bowl, and as you can see, if you hold it to the side, your mixture should actually be able to hold on to the sides without sliding, and that should be as far as you should go. Now next up, very simply, grab your egg yolks and your sugar and add them into a separate bowl. And for that, proceed now to whip the two together, adding to that a bit of your baking powder and your vanilla extract, and proceed to mix everything together. Of course, always giving a bit of time to actually whip your mixture, which should actually be able to help your sugar dissolve into the yolks. Right, so once that's nice and thick, and you should actually be able to just lift your whisk and just draw some ribbons right over the mixture. Basically, the ribbon stage is very simple to achieve. All you need to do is whip your mixture, and using a spoon or the same whisk that you're whisking with, just draw the mixture over the sides and see if you can actually be able to draw any patterns right over your mixture. And if you can, then it's thick enough. But if you can't actually hold the shape for anywhere between 5 to 10 seconds, then you know it's not thick enough and you do need to whip it a little longer. Right, so once your mixture is nice and thick, proceed to discard your whisk, and using a slotted spoon or any particular spoon of your choice, proceed to add your egg whites, of course adding half of the mixture first, and very simply proceed to actually start folding the mixture, and it's very, very simple to do so. So all you will need to do is, using your spoon, start by scooping the mixture from the sides of your bowl, and as soon as your spoon is right next to you, just turn your spoon over, more like trying to cover the egg whites with the mixture of the zabayon, which is from the yolks and the sugar. And all you need to do is continue to turn that over like that, of course making sure to try and mix in as much of that egg white as possible. Also very, very important, please never try and actually change the rotational direction that you do with this particular mixture, because it's very, very easy to actually deflate it. And now once your half is mixed in, proceed to add the other half. You can now discard your bowl and proceed to mix everything as you did for the first stage. Right, so once you've gotten this far, and you can actually now be able to almost not see any specks of that beautiful egg white meringue that you had, proceed to just grab a sieve and your flour and begin to very gently sieve in your flour in about quantities of up to a quarter of the mixture, and proceed to mix that in small bits. Of course, this stage being particularly important to make sure that you don't actually add too much of the flour at once. And all you're looking for at this particular stage is a nice consistent cake mixture kind of consistency. And of course, very important to also make sure not to knock your bowl at this particular stage, because it will actually get all that air to deflate. Right, as soon as that's done, proceed to add another quarter of your flour and just simply sift that right over your mixture. Very important to actually use a sift at this particular stage, because it will actually remove any foreign bodies or lumps of flour from your mixture. All you need to do is proceed to fold in once more. And of course, always take your time to make sure that most or all of your flour is incorporated before you add any more. Right, so your mixture is now almost done. And as I did mention earlier, very important to be very vigilant when you're adding in your flour. Remember, a lot of the different recipes that you may actually be able to find online may not actually give you the exact value. They may actually give you something almost close to what you should expect. So very important, if you're going to be making any particular pastries or cakes at home, always try and watch for the recipes as well. If you do try the first time and it doesn't work, always just take your time and consult someone who may know what happened, and they will actually be able to advise you. So now our cake mixture is done. As you can be able to see, just lifting that with a spoon, it should actually just trickle down from the spoon without actually splitting, and we just call that long string method. So very, very simple. Once that's done, we're now going to proceed to steam our cake. So very, very simply, I'm just going to pull your attention this way. And in the big pot that's been going on the side here for a few minutes now, it's just some plain hot water. And this is basically what's going to aid us in steaming our cake. But very, very importantly, as I said, I'm using a daring mold, but you can actually substitute that for anything that can particularly sit in there and won't melt. So please avoid plastic for that purpose. You can actually also find a similar bowl that's oven proof, and you can actually tilt it upside down, and it should actually be able to hold your cake bowl off the surface of the water. So very, very important to remember that the water should not actually touch the bowl, but it should actually just be underneath the bowl, and you should actually also be able to cover your pot to allow the steam to really accumulate. So very, very simply, start with adding your mold right in the middle. Of course, making sure that the mold is not completely submerged in the water. And all you're going to do now is just scoop some of your mixture and pour that right in the center of your bowl. Of course, always making sure to not add in more than 3/4 fill of your particular baking container. So I'll very much insist, if you do have a container that size, always try and just fill it up a bit, about 1/4 less of the rim of the bowl, because this will actually raise and double in size, and you do actually want to give it some air to and some room to actually expand. So very, very simply, just take that lightly as it is, place it right in the middle of your pot, of course, making sure the water doesn't touch the base. And all you need to do is now put your lid on, and you can actually at this stage turn your water to about medium to low temperature. Leave your lid on, and if you can actually find one that's easy to look through, it's very, very recommended. But if not, you can actually just put the same technique, you can actually put the same arrangement into your oven, and it will actually cook a little faster and a little better. But for the purposes of those of you who may not have an oven or most of the apparatus we're using on the show today, we're just going to make it as simple as we just did. We're going to take a short break now and clear our station. When we do come back, I will be able to show you what this very beautiful dish looks like, and we will go straight into the last and final part where we're just going to garnish it. So do not touch that dial. We'll be right back. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. For those of you who are just catching up with us on this particular episode, we've been working on a very, very simple Chinese egg cake. For those of you who are with us just before we took the break, we have come this far and we're just about at the last and final stage. So very simply, I'm just going to open that up and just allow it to just steam down a little bit. And we're basically just going to move this out of the container. But before we do so, very importantly, always very important to actually have a bit of precaution when removing such containers from the heat. And I'm just going to show you a very simple technique of doing so. So very simply, with using a pair of tongs, just proceed to just slide the tongs right through the side of the bowl, turn it over like that, and then place it onto a rag of your choice. And just allow that to sit onto your counter really lightly. And very importantly, always remember to remove the ring from the pot and keep them very, very well and keep them very, very clean. Very importantly, these rings actually do play two parts. You can actually use it to plate, or you can actually use it when cooking. So very important to always keep them disinfected and preferably in a container away from any dirt. So this is as simple as it is, and as I mentioned, it's called a daring mold. you can actually be able to get this on most of your regular retail stores. So now we're just going to use just these 2 spoons, and I'm just going to first of all just loosen that cake from the sides of the bowl. And just do that by just lightly just tucking your spoon right over the sides like that. And this particularly always helps you to really constitute your steamed cake into a nice, beautiful, presentable bowl. And it also just always allows you to also be able to look through the sides and make sure it's actually cooked through. And very, very importantly, when you're checking for that particular stage, make sure it's not a little gummy, or it's not actually still wet and with a bit of uncooked dough on the side. That would only mean that your cake isn't cooked all the way through to the center. So very, very simply, I'm just going to slide 1 spoon over the side like that, and do the same with the other. And just using the spoons, just lightly turn that over and get it onto the plate, and then twist it back once more, and that should actually be able to sit on the plate, as simple as that. And as you can be able to see, it actually leaves a very, very clean bowl. So very, very important that you actually follow every step right through, and it will actually give you something so simple. Another reminder probably is to remind you as well, when you're steaming the cake, very, very important that you actually allow your water to come to the boil before you add your cake into the pan, because it will actually absorb all the temperature in there, and it will actually just fall flat if you don't do so. So very importantly, always allow your pot to steam up, put the lid on, and allow it to just trap enough steam before you load in your cake. And very importantly also, as you get to the end, always allow the steam to completely disappear at the bottom of your bowl, and that should actually just cook your steamed cake right through. So very, very simple tip there, but very importantly, as you continue to research and check out every other or many other recipes that you could work with at home, very, very important that you remember those particular tips. Now, just to finish off this beautiful piece of heaven in front of us, I particularly like to just use a little bit of some powdered sugar in a very, very fine sieve. But I will also just remind you, very importantly, that you should actually be very, very wary about making your cake, and very importantly, always make sure it's cooked through. So always just grab a wooden skewer of any kind or a toothpick, and using the skewer, just press it right through to the middle of your cake. Count to about 5, and then just slide that slowly. And what you should actually be looking for is to make sure that your skewer actually comes out very dry and not moist at all. And as you can see, it doesn't have any trace of flour on it, so you know it's perfectly cooked through. And now, just to finish that off, a bit of some powdered sugar right over the top. Use your fingertips to just push the big lumps right through. Just finish by dusting your cake and giving it a nice, beautiful powdered finish right over the top. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is as easy as that. So thank you once again for tuning in today. I do hope you've actually managed to grasp something you can use in your very own kitchen. From my end, I've had fun. It has been a pleasure showing you how to make this very simple dish, and I hope you're actually going to try and do it yourselves at home. But from the studios, thank you so much from us once again. I will also thank you for those of you who are tuning in also on Facebook Live. Thank you so much for being with us today. And until the next episode, catch you here at the same place, same time, and have a lovely evening. See you soon.